Today we are checking out the brand new iPhone SE. It looks so much like the iPhone 8 that if I didn't know what the iPhone 8 looked like, I wouldn't even know the difference. I happen to have an iPhone 8 here, so you can see how it really does look so similar. The new SE is a little bit more white, whereas this has a little more of an eggshell type color. The iPhone name has been removed and the logo is now centered. And my iPhone 8 is still running iOS 11. So the front bezels on the new SE, the entire screen is black. So I kind of like this because it looks very seamless. So you can't tell that there are edges around it. It does look like a full screen until you actually turn it on. Whereas the 8 has the white bezels to match the white phone. I'm not really sure which one I prefer, but this looks better off. But I also like the white. I don't know. The iPhone SE comes in 3 different colors. This is the white. It also comes in black and a product red. The starting price is $399, and that's actually a really incredible price considering how powerful this little phone is. This is actually running the A13 Bionic chip, which is the same chip that is in the iPhone 11. That's gonna have an amazing impact on the performance of this phone. The original SE had a starting price also of $399, and that was in 2016. So Apple is keeping that same price, yet giving it that A13 Bionic chip that is in their highest end lineup right now. This is 1.4 times faster than the original SE, and it also will give you a 4 times graphics boost. The display is a 4.7-inch HD Retina display, and what's great about this is the same size as the iPhone 8, so all of the cases that you may already have for the iPhone 8 or that are out there already will work with the new SE. This also has Touch ID, and that's something that I never thought that I would really want back until I started having to wear face masks every time I go outside or basically do anything. Because guess what doesn't work when you're wearing a face mask? Face ID. It's also weird, I kind of missed having a home button. Like, just the haptic feedback on this alone it's just so satisfying. Like, I definitely have missed that. The one thing I was very excited about though is this does have wireless charging. A lot of times when companies are trying to cut costs with their devices, that's the first thing that goes. So the fact that this does have wireless charging is pretty exciting. So the camera is pretty impressive. You're still gonna be getting 4K 30, 4K 60 from this rear camera. This is a 12 megapixel camera. The front is a 7 megapixel selfie camera. This also features a cinematic video stabilization, so even if you are shooting at 1080, that extra stabilization will help you shoot way better front-facing videos. Pretty stable actually. You can do all of the things that you normally would be able to do on the higher end phones, like slow-mo, time lapses. It even has the quick take video, which I always forget about. So if you hold this down and then swipe, this will automatically start recording a video. I don't know why I can never remember that that's a thing, but it is. I shoot a lot of these videos in just mono audio, so when I am shooting something in stereo, it's always crazy to hear the difference. So I'm gonna shoot a quick video here. All right, we are testing out the video. Right now I'm shooting in 4K, so you guys can see the stereo audio. So maybe if I go over here, I'm over here. And if I go over here, I'm over here. I wonder if the next iPhone will record in 360 reality audio. I know that's like a Sony property, but these do have Sony lenses in them, so anything's possible. The one thing that I would miss with this is having that ultra wide lens. This does only have the wide angle lens. There's no telephoto. It will shoot portrait mode though on the front and back facing camera. The newer iPhone 11 Pros do shoot pet portrait mode. This will not, since it does really only have this one lens. This version of portrait mode is mostly relying on software, but it's still pretty good. And the fact that this phone can do that is thanks to that A13 Bionic chip, because it's doing so many processes so quickly that it's able to give you some pretty incredible features. So this comes in 3 storage configurations. There's a 64, a 128, and a 256. But what's really impressive is the 64 and the 128, there's only a $50 difference. So if you are looking to do a slight upgrade, I would recommend just going with the 128 because you really do never know when you're gonna fill up the storage on your phone. But all that being said, a lot of stuff can be stored in the cloud. You can offload apps. You can keep all of that stored virtually. So if you do opt for the 64, you will be perfectly fine. Oh, I also have one of the new silicone cases. I've had moment cases on my other iPhone for so long that I forgot how great these cases are. Before I put this case on though, I wanna show you guys a comparison of this new SE lineup next to every other white iPhone that I could find that I have previously owned. And unfortunately, one of the phones that I don't have is an original SE. Let's take a look. It's always so shocking how beautiful this iPhone is without a case. So here they are side by side. I still love the frosted glass of the 11. Oh, so pretty. So you can see the screen difference between the 11 Pro Max and the SE. Let's put these cases back on. I can't be trusted. I'm gonna put that case on the iPhone 8 just to show you and to prove to myself that it works. Here's the 8, same phone, same size. So now I'm gonna do a quick little photo and video test like I always do after my unboxings. We are outside in our typical quarantine fashion, slippers in the backyard. Doesn't matter, it doesn't. But we're gonna test out some video, some photos to show you guys what this little guy can do. We're gonna start with front-facing camera first. Hi, it's Justine in the backyard. I haven't been outside in over a month, so obviously feeling and looking fantastic. Maddie isn't here today, he's with my sister, so you guys are not gonna be getting any quality Maddie content today. I'm purposely trying to move around a lot to see how the cinematic stabilization works. Okay, let's take a selfie. So like I had mentioned, you can take portrait photos on the front and the back, so let's just take a regular photo first. Okay, let's switch to portrait. This is all the lighting effects that you guys are used to and have seen before. You can also adjust the f-stop, which will adjust how blurred or not blurred that background is. So obviously one of the highlights of the iPhone 11 Pro is you can do slow-fees, slow-mo on the front-facing camera. This does not do that, but I think you guys will be okay without having slow-fees on your front-facing camera. But we can do 240 and 120 on the rear-facing camera, which I think is pretty good. I can't run very fast because my slippers aren't on properly. Speed like that before? It wouldn't be a slow-mo test without hair flips. Now let's take a few photos from the back-facing camera. $4K 30. Let's test you out. Man, my lawn needs mowed. This grass is growing. It's getting so long out here. It's fake grass, but Jenna always tells me that, and for some reason I'm always like, wait, is it really growing? It's not! This is the back-facing camera. We're shooting in 4K 30. It's really cool though because this will actually shoot up to 4K 60, so you can still get 4K and slow down the 60 to get some nice cinematic slow-mo. So let's try that out now. This is a bad demo. Ah! Good thing it's water resistant. Why is this foaming? What is happening? I didn't like that. Why does my hose sound like a spaceship? I do plan on doing a way more extensive test with some moment lenses. So make sure you guys subscribe and hit the bell so you'll be notified when I post that video, but I'm really excited about that because I really want to try to push this thing to its limits. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this first little look at the new iPhone SE. I think this is an incredible phone at such an incredible price. It's got all the photo and video capabilities. It's fast enough to play all of the games that you would need to play. Obviously, it doesn't have the 3-camera setup. It won't do night mode, but if you're looking for a fast phone to create some content, stay connected with your friends and family, and do whatever else it is that you're gonna be doing on your phone, this is the phone for you.
This is the new iPhone SE 2020. It's the new $400 iPhone, one of the hottest phones of this year, and honestly, one of the most important phones in a long time, especially for Apple. There are some new things, a couple little tweaks in here, so here's a refresher. This iPhone SE has the body of an iPhone 8, a new camera system, and the chip from the iPhone 11, the newest A13 Bionic. So the body itself is so small, at least by today's standards. Now, today's standards happen to be pretty big. They happen to include a lot of pretty huge phones, including Apple's own huge phone. But on the other hand, it doesn't quite go all the way back to the size of the first iPhone SE, which now looking back is just absolutely tiny. I like the size of this phone though, and it's less about overall footprint size and actually more about just how thin and lightweight it is. It really is pretty noticeable. Like walking around with this as the only phone in my pocket, it's honestly pretty refreshing having a phone that's so light and maneuverable. So I know SE apparently stands for Special Edition unofficially, but I'm gonna go ahead and adjust that to Small Edition. Now the body is also IP67 water and dust resistant. It's got the glass back to give you wireless charging, and the logo is actually moved down to the middle of the phone, as you can see, to match all the newer iPhones. And then the rest you remember, speakers at the bottom paired with the earpiece, and of course, the big forehead and chin with Touch ID. Yeah, Touch ID. In a world of face masks and nose coverings though, this latest version of a standard fingerprint reader that they pretty much perfected on home button is still working great. Then there are 3 colors for the new SE, red, black, and white. And they all have black fronts, black bezels. Remember when you used to have to hack together 2 phones to get a red phone with a black front? Now even the white one's got a black front, so the black bezel is a nice little update. Naturally, I went for the product red. Side note, the materials in the box still say product red proceeds go towards AIDS relief, but on Apple's site now, that's changed to say COVID relief, so that's a good cause too. Really, besides obviously the design overall, the only part here on this older parts bin phone that frustrated me at all was the display. First of all, it doesn't double tap to wake. I didn't realize how much I did that on phones that don't have home buttons. And then second, it just doesn't get as bright as today's phones, and outdoor visibility took a bit of a hit. And it wasn't even that bad, and the resolution and pixel density or 60 hertz refresh rate didn't bother me as much because let's not forget, this is a $400 phone. But yeah, I'm just so used to screens that have gotten brighter since 2017. So knowing what we know coming into this review for iPhone SE, we know it's old body, new chip, new camera. What we want to know for the review from actually using it is how good is the performance, how good is the battery life, and how good is the camera? Well, performance, this may come as a shocker. The A13 and extra RAM absolutely fly through iOS on a 720p display. Yeah, I know, breaking news, right? Super unexpected. Performance is fine. Honestly, Apple didn't have to put the A13 in here, but I'm glad they did because performance overhead here is insane. And I mentioned this in the impressions, but this phone is gonna have the longest life of any $400 phone, probably that I've ever seen. So performance is great. Battery life has also been good. It has a really great standby time, as most iPhones do, and the efficiency of the A13, again, with a small, not very bright 720p screen, shines through. Only thing is, it's also a tiny battery. I think it's less than 2,000 milliamp hours, just because the phone is so small and thin. So it's not the battery life champ that the 10R or the 11 might be, but I had no problems getting through the day with this guy, plus wireless charging. It's good to see. And then that single camera around the back. Okay, so Apple won't tell me if it's the same camera as the 8 or the 11 or a completely new system or a hybrid of parts, but it is a single camera system and it's a pretty good one. Photos from it definitely look like familiar iPhone photos, as you can tell. When you give it enough light, it's right up there with the best, minus the fringing on close-up subjects that we've seen on some other phones because this sensor is still so small. When you get into less favorable lighting, things get a bit grainy, and when you get to dark, there is no night mode at all. I actually figured they might be able to pull off night mode with the A13 chip here, but I guess not. Either way, I'm looking at this camera as overall way above average for this price. Selfies are also pretty good. I'm sticking with it. I'm actually testing selfie cameras and phones. Again, I couldn't tell you if this is the same selfie camera as iPhone 8, but it looks about as good. And then with video, 4K 30 video from this camera is the best on any phone at this price. Easy, hands down. And that's important. People take a lot of videos of pets, of kids, of events. So this is great. You don't need 8K video or any fancy features or modes. You just need rock solid, stable, with good focus and good detail, and this one's a winner. And that is about it for this phone. I mean, honestly, it's a pretty simple formula. Take the old body, put new internals in it, sell it for cheap. But I think this strategy coming from Apple is actually more interesting than the phone itself. You know, at first glance, it may seem kind of lazy that they didn't redesign anything about this phone at all. You know, just maybe thin up the bezels a little bit or just do something to make it look more modern than the iPhone 8. But then you realize that that's exactly why this phone is so cheap. It's because they've streamlined the manufacturing of these parts for so long and for so many years that they can churn out this phone for a very low price. And redesigning any little part of it would involve new research, new tooling, new manufacturing processes, and that would have been extra cost on top. So they can make this phone for cheap. But I also think Apple may just be the only company that can pull off a budget phone like this. A phone that just nails the fundamentals and does absolutely nothing else extra. Speaker, solid, but not amazing. Camera, solid, pretty good, but no zoom. Display, solid, but not high refresh rate or OLED. Battery, solid, but not super fast charging. Like, this phone checks all the basic necessary selling points for a phone in this price range, and the selling point is it's an iPhone. You see, for others, they typically need some standout feature or something to give you a reason to buy it over the other budget phones. So whether it's the budget phone with a high refresh rate, Poco X2, or the budget phone with a stylus, we just saw that from Motorola, or the budget phone with an amazing camera, Pixel 3a. But those phones also tend to have a little bit of sacrifices in other areas. This is the budget phone that's an iPhone. And for many people, many people, that's enough. And I have no problem recommending this phone to those people. My only hesitation would be to pay attention to storage. It's $50 extra to go up from 64 gigs base storage to 128. I'd recommend, if you can spend the extra 50 to do that, then it's another 100 to double it again. But other than that, iPhone SE, small edition, is a great buy. Oh, and of course, since apparently 99% of people put a case on their phone anyway, this is one of the few phones that you can put a case on and it doesn't make it huge in your pocket.
Yo guys, Jonathan here, and this is the 2020 iPhone SE. Got a quick unboxing, and yep, there's definitely gonna be some familiarness to the box because that's really what makes the iPhone SE special. It more or less takes the body of an iPhone 8, but packs the internals of an 11 or 11 Pro, but unlike those two, the big deal here is that this starts out at $399, so I'm really excited to jump in. So this is the black iPhone SE, and it's really pretty simple in terms of options. You have black, white, and product red. What is kind of cool with product red though is in these crazy times, it does help support the fight against COVID-19. By the time you're watching this, pre-orders have definitely gone up, so if you grabbed one, let me know which color, configuration, and ultimately why you're excited for the 2020 iPhone SE. Right smack as soon as you whip out the literature, there's reference to Touch ID, which is something, again, we haven't seen since iPhone 8. Unlike that iPhone 8 though, as we check out the SIM card tool, there is now dual SIM and eSIM support with the 2020 iPhone SE. Past that, we have all the small print, the fine details, the things you should and should not do, and of course, it would not be an Apple unboxing without Apple stickers. So as we neatly kind of pack that away and take a closer look at the iPhone SE, one of the first things you'll notice is that Apple logo, which is now right smack in the middle. We first saw this move with the iPhone 11 and 11 Pro, and initially, while that was a little jarring because we had always seen the logo towards the top of an iPhone, as the design changed, as it evolved, as it got cleaner with less things on the back of the phone, I think symmetrically it makes sense, much like a MacBook, and I like the fact that there is now a uniform look across the iPhone lineup. Some upgrades here over the original iPhone SE are going to be support for wireless charging. There is also IP67 water and dust resistance. As we talk about that original iPhone SE though, it's hard not to appreciate the design on there, which was based off iPhone 4, aka the Michael Jordan of iPhone designs. Hopefully though, fingers crossed, we'll see some of that being brought back and implemented into the iPhone 12, and if you share similar thoughts, drop a like down below. From there, we have a pair of lightning earpods, and while the original iPhone SE did have a headphone jack, Apple actually ditched that on the iPhone 7, which meant no headphone jack on the iPhone 8, and ultimately no headphone jack here as well. Food for thought though, and shout out to Matt Gonzalez for pointing this out. With the price point of the iPhone SE, you could grab it, AirPods, and an Apple Watch all for less than the price of an iPhone 11 Pro, which is kind of crazy. Next, got a USB-A to lightning cable, and as we hop over to the not so fast 5-watt USB charging brick, while it's not in the box, the new SE does support fast charging via USB-C to lightning, and if you're looking for a good inexpensive option, I'll drop a couple options down below. So I think what makes the new SE so compelling is this. On the right is the iPhone 11 Pro Max, which starts out at $1099. The regular iPhone 11 Pro is $999, and then you have the iPhone SE, which is $600 and $700 cheaper, which features the same exact A13 Bionic processor. Now, as far as what that translates to in terms of performance over previous models, there is a huge jump over not only the original SE, but the iPhone 8 as well. And I think the immediate reaction for most people is going to be, why do you need that much power in a tiny compact budget 4.7-inch smartphone? Right there, we got to stop and realize that processor performance goes way beyond benchmarks or swiping through app pages. It immediately affects the image pipeline in a camera, so smart HDR, portrait mode, being able to see and preview that in real time. Video stabilization, higher frame rates, power management within the actual phone itself so you have better battery life. And then maybe more importantly above all that is the longevity of the phone, not just performance, but software updates as well. This will be a relevant phone for the next 2, 3, maybe even 4 years at least. Now, one of the differences between the iPhone SE and the iPhone 11 or 11 Pro is you're giving up Face ID for Touch ID. It's been a minute since I used Touch ID, but like I talked about in my impressions video, we're almost in this weird full circle backwards world where because of quarantine and the virus and having to wear face masks, where Face ID doesn't work that well if you're wearing a mask, Touch ID is really useful right now. Touch ID was always fast and there's no difference here, and it's really got me kind of tempted to switch over, especially just with how things are right now. One of the other big differences with the iPhone SE compared to the 11 Pro or 11 for that matter is the camera. You get a single 12 megapixel wide angle lens, so no telephoto, no ultra wide, which for me I really love. You do, however, get the same image processing as the iPhone 11 lineup, so you're going to get things like portrait mode and smart HDR. Definitely want to test out the camera further for the full review, so if you have questions on that or the SE in general, drop a comment down below. For now though, here's a quick shot of Mr. Burns on the original iPhone SE compared to the new 2020 model. Video should be a huge jump as well on the new SE. For reference, here is the original SE. And the new SE, which will shoot up to 4K 60 frames per second. The immediate thing I noticed here was much better dynamic range. Now, inevitably, I know people are going to complain about the design, the looks, the bezels. In reality, it's a pretty solid LCD. It's bright, the colors are great, and if you're coming from the original SE, it's a pretty decent jump. You gotta remember, this wasn't designed or intended to take out or compete with flagship phones, but in a weird full circle kind of way, it almost is. Most people don't need a bezel-less display or 90Hz refresh rates or don't want to spend upwards of $1,000 on a smartphone, and that's exactly what this is. It packs all the things you need in a smartphone, and it does those things really well. So I think for the price especially, it's going to be one of the best selling phones of 2020.
What do you want out of an iPhone? You probably think it's something like a good camera or long battery life, and yes, you definitely want those things. But what you want out of an iPhone, what you really want, is all of the iPhone stuff that you don't usually think about. You want the thing that works with iMessage, that's going to be reliable for several years, that has access to all of the best apps, and that's easy and simple to use. And this iPhone, the brand new iPhone SE, does all of those things for only $399 for the base 64 gig model. So this review is actually going to be really simple. Is this an iPhone? Check. Yes. Yes, it is. It does all of the iPhone things. The only question we have to answer then is whether or not it does all of those things well. Basically, if paying just $400 for an iPhone means that you're giving up way too much. So if you've seen an iPhone 8 or an iPhone 7 or an iPhone 6S or an iPhone 6, you get the basic shape and feel of the new iPhone SE. It has a 4.7-inch LCD display with True Tone to make the colors change depending on the light, and it's a really good display. It also has these huge bezels on the top and the bottom, and there is a classic home button on the bottom with a fingerprint sensor. It's compatible with iPhone 8 cases. It's IP67 waterproof, which is not the best, but it's pretty good. Overall, this thing is just really solid and it's really familiar, from the glass back to the fingerprint sensor to the whole package. And I gotta say, dear home button, I missed you. I didn't realize how much, but you're great. Anyway, there are still two small bummers to talk about with this overall design that we're so familiar with. One, I'm just gonna say it again, these bezels, they're huge. And I'm knocking it because a bunch of inexpensive Android phones have figured out how to reduce these bezels to fit a bigger screen and a smaller body, but Apple is just keeping things the same that it's always been here. Two is, the size. It's 4.7 inches, it's small, but it's not nearly as small as this guy, the original iPhone SE. Whereas this thing is basically not that much smaller than my iPhone 11 Pro. And sorry, that's just the way the phone world is now. Actually, there is a third thing to gripe about, and that is that there's no headphone jack on this phone. And that is also the way the phone world is now too. But at this price point, a bunch of Android phones do manage to hang on to the headphone jack, to be clear. So it is a little bit of a bummer here. At least Apple's including wired lightning headphones, it's just not including a headphone, 3.5 adapter. Now, the reason this phone is really impressive is that inside it has the exact same processor as the iPhone 11 Pro. It's the A13 Bionic, and that means this phone is really fast, sure, but the real reason it matters is that it means this phone is sure to get OS updates for many years to come. Now, there may be other Android phones that cost the same $399, but it's not really about that cost, it's about how often you have to spend it. And with this iPhone, you're not gonna have to spend it for a very long time. I was hoping that that modern processor would mean that battery life would be about as good as on the iPhone 11 Pro, but it's not quite. It's still very good, don't get me wrong. I'm getting through a whole day and it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 to 5 hours of screen time. It's just not stellar. I am glad it has wireless charging though, which makes the average-ish battery life a little bit easier to deal with. So let's talk camera. There's just one on the back, it's 12 megapixels, and there is a 7 megapixel selfie camera on the front. And for a $400 phone, I have zero complaints. In bright lighting conditions, it's kind of lovely. Photos are well detailed, they're color accurate, and they're sharp. In good light, it is almost hard to tell the difference between this phone and a $1,000 iPhone 11 Pro. It does some other stuff with new portrait effects and so on because it has that A13 Bionic chip, but it's still a little hit and miss with portrait mode because, you lose something when you save this much money. So, for example, low light it's not great. There's no night mode for one thing, and for another, when it's really dim light, I feel like the software just kind of panics and overcorrects and introduces a bunch of artifacts that didn't need to be there. If you're coming from like an OG iPhone SE or an iPhone 6 or even an iPhone 7, you're still gonna see a huge improvement. And I know that the Pixel 3a and the upcoming Pixel 4a are probably gonna be able to beat this thing in low light, but they will not beat it at video, where the iPhone SE completely punches above its weight class. So look, if you took away my iPhone 11 Pro, or because I'm a nerd, I also have a Galaxy S20, and you told me I couldn't have my multiple camera systems or my fancy face unlock or in-screen fingerprint sensor and the big bezel-less OLED screens, and instead I had to use this iPhone SE, I'd be sad. I'd miss those things, but not as much as you might think, because other than low light photography, I am able to do all the same things that I do on those $1,000 phones on this $400 phone. Now, if I were buying the SE, I would probably spend the extra $50 to get 128 gigs of storage instead of 64. I think it's a good upgrade if you want this phone to last 3 or 4 or maybe even 5 years. And that time span is why the iPhone SE is a big deal. No other phone for less than $500 can, promise that it's going to be this good or that it's going to last that long. And beyond that, the iPhone SE, it isn't just a good deal, it's a really good phone.
What we do here is go back.